Hey guys, welcome back. This is week 44 Project Life. I am starting as usual with my photos and I have grabbed out one of my stash kits to work with this week. Now the issue that I was having is that I've got a pretty formulaic way that I print my photos so that I don't spend too much time kind of faffing around with that stage of the process. But sometimes it does get a little bit dull, kind of having that formula to work with every single week. 2 big photos, 2 3x4 photos, some little square photos, and they all go in the same place. And I just wanted to change things up a little bit this week. So literally all I did was swap around a couple of photos, and it offered me a little bit of a challenge just to kind of get my creativity a little bit of a boost. So what I did was swap my bottom 4x6 photo. It normally sits in the left spot. I just swapped that over to the right, and then I moved my 2 3x4 photos so they would be next to each other, visually creating another 4x6 spot onto the left. So I've got those 3 larger 4x6 spots, and the other 3 are alternating and are going to end up with kind of a pattern paper background, which you can see me putting together now. So I kind of struggled a little bit with colors because my photos were all kind of a little bit dull. The bottom right hand photo is a kind of deskscape of me working at my desk, and it had some fun colors in it, so I decided to pull the colors for the rest of my spread from that photo. So I've got that kind of, it's almost a like lavendery purpley kind of blue, and there's a few spots of orange, and I'm gonna add a few different other colors to that as well. So I've trimmed down a 6x8 paper at the top. That was kind of like a skyscape kind of visual photo paper, and I've just trimmed out the middle of it. So I've got a kind of ombre from that same lavendery purple all the way down to cream. I have added a journaling card. I am going to do some journaling in there. And then I trimmed down a piece of pattern paper to a 3x4. I'm pretty sure those are supposed to be kind of like oranges or peaches or something, but this photo is about Halloween and I figured it worked just as well for pumpkins as it does for peaches. And the bottom card down there, I just added a little peachy kind of spot paper. It's one of my favorites from this kind of stash kit, and I liked the kind of combination of those warmer and cooler colors. Now from the kit, I have this big pile of die cuts. I've gone through there and pulled out just a few, not a whole bunch, but just a few that I thought I might use. I'm kind of finding the photos, the kind of layout, a little bit on the busier side, so I sort of wanted to keep the, I guess, embellishment a little bit more minimal, just so as not to overwhelm everything too much. Now when I was going through that pack of die cuts there was a big one in there. It's not quite 3x4, but it's got that kind of notebook edge to it, and I really liked that. I ended up deciding not to use it for the actual journaling card just because adding that extra color in there, I liked the whiteness of the journaling card, and so it didn't actually allow me that much room for journaling that die cut piece. So I decided in the end to just use it as kind of inspiration for my title card, and you can see I grabbed out my notebook edge punch here, and I've punched down a couple of the scraps that I've used, the same colors that I've used, although one I'm flipping over just to use the white side of it, add a little bit of white into the title card here. And I am going to end up using that 3x4-ish die cut piece just as another layer. So I've got 3 layers here of kind of notebooky paper. I've added them to the bottom of my 4x6 card, hence the reason I wanted to use some of that white, because I am covering up the kind of carefully positioned cream lighter end of that ombre, and so I really wanted to add in a little bit more lightness sort of back into that, so I've got the white strip along the bottom. Now when I was going through the die cuts, I did pull out this yellow label kind of to tie in that, I'm going to call it a pumpkin paper, to tie in the pumpkin paper. Again, just replicating some of those colors throughout the spread is going to help sort of give a little bit more consistency. So I've stamped my dates on there, and this kit did actually have an alpha in it with 2 E's, so this is the last one. This is the last alpha in this kit that has E's, so I might have to reevaluate whether this kit stays together as a whole or not, or I guess what I will do is probably pull out these sort of partial alphas and maybe swap them in with something else that's a little bit more usable. So I've just tucked those alphas in underneath one layer and on top of another just to make it part of that layering. Then I'm adding my label to that. I did experiment with another label because I saw it and it's the exact sort of right shade of blue, but I decided I would just pull it aside and I will use it elsewhere on the spread just to bring a little bit more of that color back in. Now I've got my title card sorted, so I'm sort of just moving on. I had a few ideas for my bottom card, and I was just looking at the sort of minimal amount of embellishments that I've got left in this kit. The puffy sticker set there is very much kind of, I'm gonna guess like sort of travel adventure themed, which isn't that useful at the moment, so it was sort of a case of seeing what I could find that was going to go with the photos that I had. So I have one little die cut that says sleeping in, and I'm going to make a little cluster. I'm going to use some stamps. There's a couple of kind of sleeping themed stamps in here, but instead I'm using a food one just to stamp the word yes, and I did stamp that kind of tone on tone, so I picked out a darker peach ink to stamp on top of this pattern paper, and then I'm going to layer that little die cut just slightly over top of the stamping. You can still see what the stamp says, but it's just going to tie all of that into one little cluster. Now I've got the main portion of that sort of bit down the bottom. I can place my photos. I didn't want to glue them down too soon. I wanted to make sure I had enough room for stamping. And then I'm going to just add a little bit more in the way of kind of more statement-y kind of stamp by using black ink. Now the issue that I had is this stamp says Nap Queen, and I've got 2 photos here. They're both Nap Queens. I didn't want to stamp the stamp twice. What I'm going to do is very carefully partially ink up one letter from another stamp in the stamp set. It had an S. It's not exactly the same size, but it's close enough that it reads as Nap Queens, so that was my solution to get around that. And I am going to stamp a couple of stamps, one on each of the photos as well, just to kind of create that visual pull from the top left here on the photo of Meow, Dreamer. She's a very old cat, so she does do an awful lot of sleeping. And I'm going to add another stamp onto Lily's photo down the bottom here. Very easily stamp onto photos. I print at home on photo Canon Glossy 2 paper. The paper that you print your photos on is 100% the key to stamping cleanly and easily on photos. So Lil's photo stamp is like a little bit harder to see because of the blankets that she's sleeping in, but it still adds that kind of flow down the card. Now I decided that I would go and do my journaling next. My typewriter is kind of misbehaving at the moment. It's slightly annoying. I couldn't get much further down the card than that. So I didn't love the gap that was kind of left at the bottom of it. I could have pulled the card out and sort of attached it to some scrap paper and put it back through. That's probably what I should have done at the start, but instead I'm just going to trim off another piece of pattern paper. This was again another scrap. I'm using this teal color here to kind of tie in that die cut plus those alphas in the title card, just a kind of secondary color for this scheme here. And I used that same border punch again to tie in that title card and give it kind of a reason for being there. Now originally when I had gone through that die cut pack, I chose the little arrow that says this for this photo of my well, it wasn't a live stream, it was an undead stream the day before Halloween. So zombie-faced Diane with her desk mess here. But the arrow just didn't really stand out on the paper. Neither did any of these puffy stickers that I was kind of looking at. So in the end, I decided to pull out those punches again. I've just punched a circle from that same scrap of sky paper from my title card, just using the lighter end of that. And it's just going to kind of give an outline to this puffy sticker, the same as my photo, having that white border around it. It just helps it stand out a little bit. And I could add the puffy sticker on top of there, and it just helps it stand out off that super busy pumpkin paper. Now this is where I'm going to use that blue label that I had picked out. I really did want to use that somewhere just because it was the perfect blue for this. I'm going to just stamp a stamp on here. The stamp has kind of a line on the edge of it, and normally I would probably just cut that off. Not opposed to trimming down clear stamps in any way, shape or form, but this time it was really easy just to partially ink it, and so I've just carefully inked it on the edge of my stamp pad so that it doesn't ink up the line, and then the stamp fits perfectly onto the label. Now it says happiness in the form of, and so I figured I would fill in the obvious here. This is very clearly a big plate of sushi, so I'm going to use the other alpha in the kit. It's got that same kind of blushy, pinky, corally color, so it ties in with the colors nicely, and it's the same font as the title, so it works nicely there, and I'm just adding the word sushi underneath my stamped label. Now, I was never really sure about what I was going to do with the picture of my first ever and probably last pumpkin spice latte, and I tried a few different die cuts and bits and pieces, but in the end I found this stamp set in the kit here that has a bunch of kind of coffee themed words, so I'm just going to stack up a few of them in this bottom corner. Having that dark area of the photo makes it really easy to stamp on. I'm using a Moonlight white ink, and it just stands out so well on that dark background. So I have stacked up 3 little stamps, and I originally had kind of a heart banner on this page. I liked the little heart, so I decided to add one of the puffy sticker hearts. There's only a few left, and kind of that same lighty pink kind of corally peachy color. It's hard to describe it really. It actually is a very, very fine polka dot on the heart, so it fit nicely and kind of just fills in the rest of that space. I decided to leave that desk photo just as it is. It's a pretty busy photo as it is, so I'm just going to leave that and work on this last 4x6 photo here. I actually pulled a piece of that same kind of coral colored spot paper from the bottom photo there. I pulled that off the trash can beside me. Decided it would be perfect to kind of ground that little die cut. There were kind of some specific things that I wanted to say about this photo, and I was tempted to just handwrite it, but I kind of thought it would stick out like a sore thumb, to be honest. So I went through all of the stamps that I've got here in this kit to see whether there was anything that kind of vaguely said the same thing, and there was not. So in the end, I did pick out one stamp, and you've seen me here just chop the end off it with a pair of scissors. Use some sharp scissors, be super careful. It is no issue cutting up a clear stamp. And it gives me this little line with an arrow so that I can stamp one beside Shane and one beside me, and then add in my little snarky comments there. I just typed them out with my typewriter. You can see them there. And that's the spread all done. I feel like I might be coming to the end of the usability of this stash kit, but I'm still totally pleased with how this layout came out. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to keep watching, there are a couple more videos on screen. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye guys.